So initially I wasn't going to do a video on this. I see a lot of this as a waste of my time, really. But then a student of mine contacted me and showed me this video, and I figured it would be an interesting exercise on biblical cherry picking in conjunction with a lack of understanding of human history, essentially. So let's get started.
It's a pretty known fact that the Jews are God's chosen people, that the Jewish homeland is Israel, that the Jews believe in the Old Testament, and that the Old Testament is about Jews. However, almost none of these facts are true. Nowhere in the Bible does it call the Jews God's chosen people. Modern-day Israel isn't really the homeland of the Jews. The Jews don't really believe in the Old Testament, and only maybe 5% of the people in the Old Testament can even be considered Jewish. So now that you've branded me an anti-Semite, we can begin. So, the expression anti-Semite literally means against Shem.
It might literally mean against Shem, but thanks to modern examples of anti-Semitism being functionally anti-Jewish, the term anti-Semitism became synonymous with anti-Jewish sentiment exclusively.
Or his descendants. However, being anti-Jewish isn't the same as being anti-Semitic.
Not true. Jews are Semites, and therefore if you are anti-Jewish, you are anti-Semitic by definition. And this is a fundamental problem with people like this, that they need to change the definition of words and meanings in order to fit their beliefs and their feelings rather than the facts. The facts are Jews are Semites. If you are anti-Jewish, you are anti-Semitic by default.
So let me explain. The Semites are the descendants of a man named Shem, who would father some of the world's most renowned empires and dynasties, such as the Assyrian and Babylonian empires.
Half truth this time around. The Babylonians are actually Hamites according to the Bible. Of course, if we actually read the Bible, we'd know this. But as you'll see, this guy clearly hasn't.
And even the Persians can call themselves Semites. So why is it when you say something against the Jews, you are considered anti-Semitic? Because just like stealing your religion, your homes, your money and businesses, some Jews also love stealing names, inheritance, and land.
I find it hilarious that people like him say this kind of stuff and then wonder why they get branded anti-Semitic, or even wonder why anti-Semitic seems to be synonymous with anti-Jewish sentiment. It's almost as if there's a certain group of people who specifically hate Jews and no other form of Semites, and thus the form of anti-Semitism has always just been anti-Jewish sentiment. And that redefining anti-Semitism is merely a straw man, much like how, we're just going to claim that Jews are thieves of everything and not tangibly prove it with any citations. But of course, we wouldn't make a 10-minute video on that now, would we? Oh no, this video's 10 minutes.
So Shem is the son of Noah.
Now's as good a time as any to point out that nowhere in the text does it indicate that Shem had blonde hair. And as a matter of fact, given that he's the father of the Semites, ergo people from the Middle East and Asians, and not Europeans, the trait that does have blonde hair, it's likely that if anyone did have blonde hair, it would be his younger brother Japhet. So, just figured I'd point that out.
The guy who built the ark when Mesopotamia flooded.
Mesopotamia isn't the only place that flooded, buddy. The world flooded. We have a cacophony of evidence to show this. And more indication on the text that it was world or globe-esque than it could have ever have been regional.
The Sumerian kingdom would be destroyed by the flood, and the Semites would descend from the Caucasian mountains and establish the Akkadian Empire.
There is so much wrong with this that I actually don't know where to start. First and foremost, there is no historical evidence to suggest that the Sumerian kingdom was flooded and that's how it was destroyed. And while it's true that Akkad came afterwards, as I've already told you, Akkad is Hamitic according to the Bible.
Shem would have children, and one of his descendants would be named Eber. He would be the father of the Hebrew people, and the Semites would be called by his name. Eber's line would eventually give birth to a man named Abram or a Jew named Abraham.
And here we have our second major logical fallacy, which is yet another straw man. Jews don't call Abraham a Jew in the ethnic sense, they call him a Jew in the religious sense. He's called Abraham our father by Jews, signifying that he was the first person to practice Yahwism or Proto-Judaism. So to not call him an adherenter of that faith is outright ignorant.
Except Abraham has never been a Jew, nor will he ever be a Jew, and to call Abraham one is just plain ignorant, so let's go through it. So, according to the Bible, Abraham was a Hebrew and not a Jew, who God promised would be the father of many nations. Not one single Jewish nation, but many nations, and that through him all the families of the world would be blessed. Abraham would pass this blessing on to his younger son Isaac, and not his eldest son Ishmael.
In reality, Ishmael was the original inheritor of the promise. It isn't until Isaac is born that Ishmael loses the promise.
Isaac would have twin sons named Esau and Jacob. Again, the Abrahamic blessing would be passed down to the younger brother Jacob, who would then be
How convenient that we forget what the actual text has to say on this matter. In fact, Jacob stole his promise from Esau. He didn't get it passed down to him legitimately.
Chapter 27. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here I am. And he said, Behold now, I am old, I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out to the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison, and to bring it. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me some venison, and make me savory meat, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock, and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse, my son, only obey my voice, and go fetch me them. And he went and fetched, and brought them to his mother. And his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob her youngest son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands, and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savory meat and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Because the Lord thy God brought it to me. And Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. And Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him, and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy, as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also had made savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise, and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly, and said, Who? Where is he that hath taken venison, and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him, yea, and he shall be blessed. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety, and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. And these words of Esau her elder son were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice, and arise, flee thou to Laban my brother to Haran, and tarry with him a few days, until thy brother's fury turn away, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me?
So what's actually going on here? Well, put simply, in ancient Mesopotamia, the line of succession for any line, not just royal lines, any line, would be in the order of the firstborn son of the first wife. This is why Ishmael lost his promise. It has nothing to do with Isaac being the younger. Isaac is the firstborn son of Abraham's first wife. And it's why Genesis 27 treats this like a tragedy, because in reality, Esau was the rightful inheritor, and Jacob stole it. That is an important note here. Jacob stole it. Isaac did not give it to him willingly.
Named to Israel. Israel would then have 12 sons. His sons would each become their own tribes and eventually become their own nations. One of his
No. It's established history that the 12 tribes of Israel ceased to be tribes and became one nation underneath one king, and that dynasty only ever lasted 2 kings before being usurped by King David, before his grandson Rehoboam lost half of the kingdom in a rebellion, which we will get to later, because he does conveniently bring it up. So, no, the Israelites were not 12 nations, they were 12 tribes that became one nation that then split into 2 nations.
Sons would be named Judah, who would be the father of the Jewish people.
Yet another half-truth. It is true that the tribe of Judah was considered to be one of the primary members of the kingdom of Judah. But as we know from 2 Chronicles chapter 15 verse 9, the kingdom of Judah would later include Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon among their leads, and including the tribes of Benjamin and Levi, that's half of the Israelite tribes that the Jews comprise of.
And all Jews are related to him.
As I have just explained, as the Bible shows, the Jews comprise of 6 tribes, not 1, and thus that's just another lie.
Even though all Jews are Israelites, majority of Israelites are not Jews.
I'm starting to feel like a broken record here. As I've already shown, that's just not true, especially in today's world where we've included the tribe of Dan, making the modern Jews 7 tribes, not 6, which actually would make the majority of Israelites Jews.
Obviously, Israel would have to pass the Abrahamic blessing to Judah in order for them to be the chosen people.
Yeah, that would be true if it weren't for the fact that Jacob split the blessing between his 12 sons. It was originally the Israelites that were known as the chosen people, not the Jews. It wasn't until the northern tribes of Israel were dispersed and the kingdom of Judah became one homogeneous group, known as the Jews, that the notion became that the Jews were the chosen people, because they were what was left of that chosen people. Interestingly enough, we're going to see later on in the video that he thinks that the promise can be split, but only when it's convenient for him.
Israel would want his favorite son Joseph to inherit the Abrahamic blessing.
Anyone catch that? Earlier it went to the youngest, but now it goes to the favorite. Would that be because we know for a fact that the tribe of Benjamin, who was the youngest brother, ended up in the kingdom of Judah, and therefore the Benjaminites would have been in the kingdom of Judah, and they would have been the Jews? And thus, if we went with your logic that it was only one tribe that was the chosen people, it still would have been the Jews, and so now we have to move the goalpost. Well, I'll be damned, that's a lie and a logical fallacy in one sitting. I'm going to have to do double the editing now. Thanks.
However, Judah, the father of the Jews, would be jealous and conspire with his brothers to have Joseph killed.
No. Judah and his fellow brothers plotted against their brother, Joseph, because he had dreams in regards to Joseph specifically reigning over them in his lifetime, which is what happens when he becomes vizier of Egypt. It has nothing to do with tribal affiliations or anything like that. It was jealousy for Joseph's dreams. It wasn't even that he was the father's favorite, so that's technically 2 lies.
Killed. In the end, Judah sold Joseph into slavery for silver, much like Judah sold Jesus to the Jews. So the Bible portrays Judah as a jealous villain and Joseph as the chosen son.
Does it now? Why then is it that Judah's words is what ends the conflict between Joseph and his brothers? Joseph is about to take his brother Benjamin as a slave, and it's Judah who puts himself up and says, "No, take me instead, because my father needs Benjamin." Later we see that Jacob gives Judah the scepter and says that all of his brothers will bow to him. If that's what a villain is to you, what do actual villains look like? Villains don't apologize for their actions. Villains don't put themselves on the line. Villains don't offer themselves to people they wrong in order to prevent more evil from happening. That's what a hero does. And yes, of course, the patriarch Judah is a flawed individual. His actions are not the actions of a person we are supposed to imitate because he is operating without Torah, but that doesn't change any facts. Judah is not portrayed as a villain in the Bible, not by a long shot.
While in slavery, Joseph would rise to become the prime minister of Egypt and father 2 sons named Ephraim and Manasseh. In the end, Israel would adopt Joseph's sons and pass the Abrahamic blessing on to them.
So here's the deal. This video is already double the length of the original one, and I've already stated that this is a waste of my time. So every time he restates a lie or says something in regards to something I've already addressed, unless I feel it's important, I'm not going to bother commenting, and I'm just going to add to the lie counter.
making them the chosen people, and dividing Joseph into 2 tribes, making 13 tribes of Israel. As for the father of the Jews, his 2 eldest sons would die, and Judah would end up bowing down to Joseph. So, now that you understand that the Jews were never intended to bless the world, nor were they ever considered the chosen people, we can move on to our second.
Like I said earlier, the promise can only be split when it's convenient for him. In reality, the 12 sons of Israel got independent promises. And interestingly enough, in Genesis chapter 49, Ephraim and Manasseh actually don't get any promise. It's Joseph who gets a double portion because he's Israel's favorite, who then gives this double portion to his 2 sons so that way they get an even portion. The only tribe to get a substantial, larger portion of the promise is actually the tribe of Judah.
Point. So, is the Jewish homeland Israel? And the answer is yes and not at all. Israel was originally called the land of Canaan, named after Noah's grandson, Canaan. The land of Canaan was conquered by the Israelites after they left Egypt with Moses, found in the book of Exodus. The Bible says God commanded the Israelites to punish the Canaanites for their sexual immorality, which led to child sacrifice, which would eventually lead to cannibalism. The word cannibal actually comes from the words Canaan and the god Baal.
I want you to sit down and imagine not being able to do a single Google search. To take 5 minutes out of your time to do a Google search. The word cannibalism is derived from canibales, the Spanish name for the Caribs, a West Indies tribe that may have practiced cannibalism. From Spanish a cannibal or caribal, a savage. The term anthrophagy, meaning eating humans, is also used for human cannibalism.
Baal was the god of Canaan, and the priests were known for eating the children after they were sacrificed to him, hence why we call them cannibals. So now that you understand what kind of people were living in Canaan, try not to feel so bad when you read that God ordered us to exterminate them. The borders of the Jewish homeland were established by Joshua, who was one of the descendants of Joseph and not from Judah. So if we were to restore the Jews to their original land, according to the Bible, the Jewish homeland would look less like this and more like that.
So I've already explained how the Jews are not just one tribe, and I've used the Bible to prove this, but once again, the Jews are now 7 of the 12 tribes, and therefore they would actually own the majority of that land. But it gets even worse. Here's a map of the kingdom of King David. The maximum Jewish land that they've ever owned is almost 3 times the size of the modern state of Israel. So, a double lie.
So, like the story of Joseph and Judah, their children likewise wouldn't get along either. After becoming nations, there would be a civil war. The Jews would rule the southern kingdom of Judea, while Joseph's sons would rule the northern kingdom, keeping the name Israel.
There's actually so much lying going on here that I'm starting to lose track. Honestly, I didn't think the counter was going to go this high. Well, let's start off with the fact that he's conveniently forgetting that the land of Israel was unified into one kingdom. Of course, we can't have that because King David was a Jewish person, and that would mean that a Jew actually owned the place, so we're ignoring that. And he pretends as if the tribe of Ephraim somehow, ruled the northern kingdom, when we know for a fact that that's not the case. Luckily, being the Bible chronographer I am, I can settle the score on this. So let's start off with the first king, Saul, who reigned for a while and then gave it to his son, Eshbal. That line then lost legitimacy and David was anointed. He was of the tribe of Judah. It then went to his son, Solomon. It then went to his son, Rehoboam, and Rehoboam lost in a civil war of a type against the northern tribes of Israel. And this had nothing to do with tribes rising up due to legitimacy rights. No, it was because the northern tribes didn't believe in the religion of the southern tribes. And this caused the initial split. Now, he is slightly correct in that the tribe of Ephraim did end up on the throne of this new nation for 2 generations and 2 generations alone. After that, it's given to the tribe of Issachar, overthrown by the tribe of Simeon, then back to Issachar, then back to some no one that no one knows what tribe it was part of, then the tribe of Gad, and then some random Jew shows up and takes it, and then some no one who runs the kingdom so far into the ground that the Assyrians take it. So, no, the tribe of Ephraim did not rule the northern kingdom. Initially that might be true, but for the majority of its existence, that's not true. That is a lie.
They would have different religions, believe in different gods, and while Judah stayed in Judea, Joseph would ally himself with the Phoenicians and establish colonies and trade posts all over the Mediterranean. The kingdom of Israel would be corrupted by foreign ideologies, and like the Canaanites would fall into materialism, sexual immorality, and child sacrifice, which would lead to them being conquered by the Assyrian Empire. Some of the Israelites would be taken into captivity into the lands of Assyria and Media, while some of the Israelites and Phoenicians would flee to their colonies and trade posts, fulfilling the promise made to Abraham that the world would be blessed through him.
No, that promise is fulfilled by the revelation of Jesus Christ, aka Yeshua HaNatsari, an individual who fulfilled the messianic prophecies.
As he would be the father of many nations.
Those 2 promises are not contingent on each other, they are actually 2 separate, different promises.
So the sons of Joseph would become fruitful and multiply among the nations, forgetting who they are with.
Ah, yes, who can forget the ye old, we forgot who we were. We don't have any evidence, and that's how we forgot, and that's why we don't have any evidence. It's circular logic. It's a lie and a logical fallacy, all in one, all again.
It shouldn't surprise us considering their names literally mean fruitful and forgetful. Just like the Northern Kingdom, the Jews would fall into sexual immorality and start sacrificing their children. They would be conquered and enslaved by the Babylonians, then freed and re-established by the Persians, conquered again by the Greeks, and later occupied by the Romans. While under Roman rule, the Jews would launch the greatest revolution in Roman history, known as the Great Revolt, which would fail, causing Judea, Jerusalem, and the Jewish temple to be destroyed, ironically fulfilling everything Jesus and the Christians said would happen. The Jews, not being satisfied with losing their temple and homeland, would stab the Romans in the back by launching 2 more rebellions, killing over 500,000 Greeks and Romans. God would bless the chosen people with 2 more humiliating defeats, along with a banishment from the land, causing Judea to be renamed to Syria Palestina. So the reason the Jews have been able to take Palestine really rests on the fact that they've stolen the name Israel and have convinced the Christian West that they are the chosen people and that they alone are Israel.
That's actually another lie. There's another Israelite group known as the Samaritans, who are remnants of the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh who did not enter the kingdom of Judah. Additionally, in today's age, we know of a group called the Beta Israeli, who left for Israel and converted to Judaism, but they're the tribe of Dan. So, no, really, no, absolutely, and Jews have that title of being Israel because, as I've shown several times now, they made up, at the time, 6 of the 12 tribes, including Ephraim and Manasseh, as shown in 2 Chronicles. There is no getting around this.
But once putting things into perspective, we see that just isn't true.
I'm only adding commentary here because I'm going to be bumping the lie counter from 33 to 36, and I feel like I need to verbally justify that. The first one is for Manasseh's hair, of which there's no proof that he was blonde, and he likely wasn't blonde. The second one is for calling something that is blatantly true false, so that's a lie in on itself. And the third one is for lying about having perspective, because if it's anything this video has, it's the lack thereof.
Which brings us to our third point. Do the Jews believe in the Old Testament? The answer is kind of and not really. While waving around the Old Testament as if they believe in it, the Jews actually have secondary books that they consider just as important, the main book being called the Talmud.
The Talmud is not considered to be as important as the Old Testament in most Jewish circles. I'm sure you can sit down and Google some radical Haredi group that claims that the Talmud is actually part of the Bible, or some ridiculous nonsense like that, because that's how religion works. It changes from sect to sect. But general, normative Judaism does not see the Talmud on the same level as the Old Testament.
To explain the Talmud, we have to understand some basic Jewish Roman history, going back to Emperor Claudius, who, like Emperor Tiberius, tried to ban the Jews from Rome after branding them aggressive troublemakers. Sadly, Emperor Claudius didn't understand how to play the Game of Thrones and ended up mysteriously being killed. His successor, Emperor Nero, would lift the Jewish ban, which shouldn't surprise us considering the Talmud says he was a Jewish convert. Nero and his Jews would engage in some of the most barbaric acts known to man.
So first we must give credit where credit's due. He finally said something truthful. The Talmud really does claim that Nero converted to Judaism. However, there's no historical evidence to suggest he had a posse of Jews or that he was working with them. It's more likely that he did this because he wasn't mentally well, and so he decided to just screw with all of his fellow Romans. I'd add a lie to the lie counter for other claims being made, but since he told a truth, they cancel each other out.
Just to give you an idea of how crazy this pro-Jewish Roman emperor was, Nero burned down Rome and blamed it on the Christians, causing them to be tortured and killed in the worst ways imaginable. He murdered his entire family, then kicked his pregnant wife and unborn child to death, and then castrated a young boy named Sporus and forced him to dress like the wife who he had just murdered.
Emperor Nero really did all those things, and more. However, know how he tries to frame it as if this is like Jewish backed, like the Jews think that this is a good idea, that they really like that Nero's done this. I have a bounty out for information. I am willing to give anyone $200 if they can source to me an official Jewish source that claims that the actions of Emperor Nero were overly positive and that all the things stated right there are things they support.
With the coming of Jesus, the Jews would divide into two main groups, those who believed that Jesus is the Messiah, while the other group of Jews rejected this claim.
No, the Pharisees were already an established group before Jesus arrived, which is why they are main characters throughout his entire saga. As a matter of fact, Second Temple Judaism can be looked at a number of about 26 identified sects. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, as well as the Essenes, are the most important ones, however, but there are a couple of other minor sects that have minor importance, like the Galilean Jews, of which Jesus himself came from, the Galilean sect of Judaism.
Believing that their Messiah would come wielding a sword to destroy the Romans and set up a Jewish empire, which is what led the Jews to revolt against Rome in the first place. That, and they just didn't want to pay taxes. After their failed rebellions, the Jews would retreat to Babylon, creating the religion we know today as Judaism.
Voy a la playa, había subido la marea.
Making Christianity older by about 200 years. Argue and say that the Talmud is the oral law that was passed down orally without any mistakes since the time of Moses, before finally being written down between 200 and 400 years after Jesus. This would place the Jews in first place above the Muslims for the longest, most successful game of broken telephone ever played.
Believe it or not, I actually agree. The story of the Talmud and how it came to be is utterly ridiculous. The Torah itself doesn't mention oral Torah, or as we know it as Torah Sheba'al-Peh. It's a ridiculous premise, and it's probably false.
The Talmud speaks of its love for Christians by calling the mother of Jesus a whore and calling Jesus a bastard sorcerer who is in hell boiling in human shit.
No. The figure known as Yeshu from that section of the Talmud has never definitively been connected to Yeshua HaNatsari, more specifically because most Talmudic references to Yeshua name him the Nazarite, and in those texts it specifically names him as Yeshu. Not the Nazarite, but Yeshu.
Which brings us to our last point. Is the Old Testament about Jews? The answer is no, not really. Because the Jews have stolen the name Israel, you would never guess that the majority of the people in the Bible are not Jewish. The Apostle Paul, for instance, even though everyone calls him a Jew, Paul quickly separates himself from the Jews and says, "I am an Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin."
To anyone who's paying attention, this shouldn't actually be a surprise. As I said, the Jews were in reality a conglomeration of 6 of the Israelite tribes, the tribe of Benjamin being one of them. However, why is it that Paul says that he's a Pharisee, son of a Pharisee, if he's not Jewish?
The Bible also says that God sent Paul to preach among the Israelites, and
I'm trying my hardest not to do an ad hominem, because that's a logical fallacy. But when you literally cannot read, and then you use what you didn't read as a reference, that's a big, problem for you. You see, he also says that he was sent to Gentiles and kings in the exact same sentence. And if Israelite is synonymous for Jew, like for anyone else who's been actually paying attention, then it makes it abundantly clear as to who he's after. He's after everyone. Gentiles, kings, and Jews. He might be after some lost Israelites, but you will note that he doesn't say lost Israelites. He says Israelites. And there's only one group of Israelites at that time who aren't lost.
funny enough, Paul's ministry wasn't in Judea, but he was sent to preach to the Galatians in Asia Minor, the Greeks in Greece, and the Romans in Rome. The Bible is constantly separating the kingdom of Israel from the kingdom of Judah.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder that a compilation text developed by the descendants of the kingdom of Judah would constantly separate themselves from that northern kingdom that rebelled and...
As it is constantly separating Joseph from Judah. The entire Jewish deception and hijacking of the Bible depends on them stealing the terms Semites, Hebrews, and Israelites. For example, Moses, the man who wrote the first 5 books, known as the Torah, did not come from the tribe of Judah, nor was he part of the kingdom of Judea, yet somehow he is a Jew. The reality here is the majority of the people in the Old Testament are not Jewish.
You heard it here first, folks. A total half of the entire Israelites that the Bible says that the kingdom of Judah made up aren't the majority of characters, I guess. I mean, even though, 3 or 4 of those tribes, play major roles. Oh, man.
The Bible is a book that tells the history of many nations and peoples, like the Semites, Hebrews, Israelites, Egyptians, Phoenicians, Babylonians, Assyrians, Armenians, Persian, Greeks, Romans, and many others. It's not only about Jews.
So the total tally is 9 logical fallacies and 48 categorical lies. Your grade's an F-, and I didn't know why you would think you could ever possibly get any higher. Really, I didn't want to do this. This is such a waste of my time. I'm sitting down recording this at 3:44 a.m. and this video is almost 4 times the length of the original one, which I think just speaks volumes to how much non-evidence there is that you can make a 10-minute video, say so much lies, and I could say so much in reverse that it's ridiculous. The people who think like this are not mentally healthy. I have a history of like making bad decisions and having anger fits. So I'm not even the best person to call people out on this, but the people who think like this are not mentally healthy. Most of them have either been led down a path of essentially infinite regress, where any information they get must be true because it's about Jews, so long as it's negative. Or they're jealous, or they're scared. Really, there's not much to really say on this topic. It's sad to see people think this way. It's sad to see them talk this way. And it's not like I'm like some biased person. I've got nothing to gain or lose from this. I'm a Christian fellow who just happens to be ethnically Jewish, so it's not like I have much dog in this fight. It's just everything said in this video is objectively false, and someone has to address it. And if you enjoy this video, I encourage you to like and subscribe. That would really help me. I mean, I don't have a lot of that, but I'll take what I can get. And if you're interested, I encourage you to seek out rational, logical arguments provided here and on other facets of YouTube. With that, Shalom Aleichem.